We're all going to remember the end of Caleb Williams' performance against the Green Bay Packers, but he was actually really dialed in from the start. He just didn't have the ball much.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making the Locked On Bears podcast your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. On the show today, we're going to go through why this Bears offense started so slow, why it was a struggle to get points on the board early on, and what was really happening there, and how Caleb Williams wasn't really part of that problem. That really wasn't like he was missing guys or anything like that. He was actually dialed in from the start, didn't start missing players really until the fourth quarter, but that was sprinkled in with so many other great plays that it didn't really matter. It was a strong all-around game from Caleb Williams, but we'll look at some of the things maybe that the coaching staff could have done a little bit better to help him be more successful, especially now that we have a chance to go back and take a look at what Green Bay was doing defensively with the All-22 film. It becomes a little bit more clear what the Bears were trying to deal with on their end, and then we'll talk about this Bears defense and why they struggled to get off the field against Jordan Love and Malik Willis, despite taking two very different approaches to each of the two quarterbacks. They handled them differently, and still the results were fairly similar with both of them in terms of some long drives from their opposing quarterbacks, but just they happened in some different ways. But I was really curious going into this game, like, okay, the Bears couldn't get any points in the first half rolling there. I mean, they got the field goal, but like there wasn't really much to write home about in this game. They didn't get the field goal until the start of the third quarter, but like scoreless in the first half and not able to finish those drives with actual points. Was Caleb Williams missing guys? Because we've seen him do that, or were they getting away from the running game, or like what was leading this Bears offense astray? Why couldn't they get points in this first half in particular? And then, 3 points in the third quarters, early on there is a really slow kind of mustering of this offense. Why couldn't they get rolling? And it's not as though there's one clear, repeated answer there. But the point being that it was definitely not Caleb Williams is taking too long to get into a rhythm type of conversation. I mean, first of all, he only attempted 2 passes in the first quarter, and he was 2 for 2 on those 2 passes in the first quarter. Like, to some extent, that's a big part of the story, but the Bears were running the ball really well. If you think about the first drive, they're handing off to Swift. They're getting 5-7 yard chunks pretty consistently on the ground. Caleb's first pass is like a intermediate in cutting out to Ja'Day Walker over the middle of the field for, a 12, 14 yard gain, whatever it was around that area. A little later on, they're running the ball some more. He hits Olamide Zaccheaus on a shallow crossing route. It's man covered, so he's got a bunch of space in front of him, so he catches it and goes for, it's a short pass, but he catches it and runs for like 20, 23 yards, whatever it was. And like the offense really was clicking pretty darn well on that first drive. And then you get into the red zone there, and you get, 1st and 10 from the 13. They hand it off to Swift for 6 yards. All right, 2nd and 4 from the 7. You hand it off to Swift. He's stuffed at the line of scrimmage by Bullard and then Quay Walker in there. 3rd and 4 at the 7. They hand it off to Swift again. He gets 3 yards. He's just short of the yard to gain. So then you're 4th and 1 at the 4 yard line. Trick play, fumble. I don't think any of us question, yes, they should have been running the ball with Swift there. The running game was working well on that opening drive. Caleb Williams had a scramble, had a couple completed passes, was 2 for 2 on that drive. DJ Moore had that little end around, or was a wide receiver reverse kind of thing that they handed the ball off to him. And maybe it was a backwards lateral. Regardless, they got the ball moving in a bunch of different ways. They get to 4th and 1, trick play. You don't want to put it all on Ben Johnson for calling the trick play there, but the offense was working really well up to that point outside of one run stuff. But no one's going to complain about the Bears sticking to the running game, especially on that first drive of the game. But offense was clicking, firing along, and then, they stall a little bit in the red zone, and then trick play fumble, really kind of derails everything there. So kind of early Ben Johnson-ish type of blame, at least Ben Johnson play calling. Obviously he and the coaching staff do a lot of other really good things, but just in this game, certain situational moments and play calling, because you go to like the second drive of the game for this Bears offense, and it doesn't help that the Packers offense was on the field a bunch in between this, so the defense couldn't get off the field. But on that second drive, you get a drop pass by Colin Munungai, but it's negated by a defensive holding penalty, so that gets things going. And I think the Bears were starting pretty far back inside their own territory on that second drive. You have Caleb Williams' first incompletion of the game was when there was a blitz and he threw it to the right and DJ Moore was never looking for it. Right? He's just trying to get rid of it and kind of find more, but there was just miscommunication where receiver's not ready for the pass and the ball is thrown his way. So it's not like an inaccurate throw by Caleb. He got rid of it. He avoided the negative play. Receiver just wasn't where he needed to be or ready for the ball there. Then you get a Darnell Wright false start, gets you in 3rd and long. Packers blitz. Caleb Williams flushed out of the pocket, throws it away down the right sideline. Nothing's open. Blitz is in his face. He's got to get rid of it. And the Bears end up punting it back the other way. And it's like, all right, you've got miscommunication with the receiver and then failed blitz pickup in there. And both of those plays, really, pressure from the opposing defense. Like, the Bears didn't have a ton of great blitz responses. And that, again, feels a little bit more Ben Johnson-y there because they were running the ball well with Munungai on that second drive. Runs a 6 and 7. There was a shorter run or two in there, but getting the running backs involved and again, like moving the ball and taking some time off the clock as well. But, just kind of little things slip through the cracks here and there. And that's how you go through the whole first half pointless or scoreless, I guess, because you do get it with 2 minutes left. And again, Caleb comes out right away and hits Colston Loveland for a nice completion. Then I think the very next play, they no huddle, under pressure, flushed out, throws incomplete, just throwing it away just to the sideline there. And then, next play, he throws it short to, I think, a check down to somebody. I think it was running back out of the backfield. I don't remember whoever it was. I think it was Zacchaeus over the middle. And then hurry up, throw a quick out route to Cole Kmet. And he's really kind of tackled by the defensive back, swarmed. I mean, you could have called defensive pass interference there, called a pass breakup, whatever it was, way too tight coverage there. But a ball that's thrown to Cole Kmet, it's not an inaccurate pass. All throughout that first half, there wasn't a ball that Caleb Williams threw too high and sailed in his receiver, threw at his receiver's feet, or put it too far out in front for him to reach out and grab, or too far behind a receiver to come back for. He wasn't 100% completion percentage, but it was miscommunication here, drop pass there, really, really tight coverage that was probably interference or defensive holding on one of them. Caleb was doing fine, and the running game was generally doing fine. It was just throwaways and blitzes really disrupting a lot of what the Bears wanted to do on offense. And I kind of am left feeling like the Bears could have done a little bit more to be prepared for the blitzes and the pressure being in there. The offensive line wasn't horrendous by any means. It was just Green Bay they weren't blitzing on every snap. It was 40% of the time they were blitzing, I think was the number that came out there, but they were really effective on those blitzes. He was under pressure on 13 of the 15 blitzes the Packers made. Chicago could just not pick it up properly and didn't have a lot of answers to it. And we didn't even necessarily see a ton of progress in that specific regard in the second half. You just saw, the defense make some stops and Bears get out of their own way in some of those areas and not have some of these mistakes that kind of had those self-inflicted wounds. But I can't help but leave this game feeling obviously, super, super strong finish by Caleb and overcame an offensive late start, but I don't think it was a Caleb late slow start. Right? I think he was kind of picked up where he left off in the Browns game in terms of not missing a ton and being quick to get dialed in quickly when the offense needed him to. They just didn't have him throw the ball all that much because they weren't on the field all that much. And the passes he did miss weren't necessarily bad throws or missed throws from Caleb Williams, but down the stretch, they're behind on the scoreboard. They got to throw more. They have more time of possession building up, and you see more passes, and all of a sudden, boom, game-tying touchdown, boom, game-winning touchdown. Caleb Williams' brilliance overcomes the slow start that they had seen. I would have liked to see the offensive staff and the play calling adjust a little bit more and adjust a little bit quicker to what Green Bay was doing to the Bears offense. So we'll take a look more specifically at what they were getting from Jeff Hafley and some of the different ways that maybe Ben Johnson as a play caller could have done a little bit more to help Caleb Williams and company in this game. Next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. NFL Sundays move fast. one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. And that's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting, because you're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. And that live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A quarterback gets hot, a defense tightens up, or that momentum flips with a big turnover. And FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly and player props that update as guys heat up. So right now, the Bears are actually 3-point underdogs on the road against the 49ers this upcoming Sunday. But if one team starts hot or one team starts slow, that line could move and you could jump in on the action as it's happening with FanDuel. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this year, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. It just felt like there were so many different things or different levers this coaching staff could have tweaked a little bit more to not necessarily be the magic solution to everything the Packers were doing on defense, but just try and make life a little bit easier. Try some different things to get this offense going earlier, because they were moving the ball, right? Like, it ends up being little mistakes here and there, and yet it felt like the consistent theme was Caleb's under pressure, he's flushed out of the pocket, and he just has to throw it away because they couldn't pick up the blitz and nothing's open downfield. So I think we could have seen Ben Johnson do more things to punish the blitz. I don't want to say nullify the blitz because you can't like erase it, but to give Caleb Williams better options against the blitz. And I just think there's things we've seen the Bears offense do in other games that they didn't do as much in this game, that I think the game plan, or I guess that I think the response from Green Bay should have called for from Chicago. Like the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've seen Caleb Williams' rate of play action steadily increase more and more and more, where they're doing it like more than half the time against the Browns. I think it was more than half the time against the Packers in the first matchup. A lot less play action in this game. When you go back and watch it, straight drop back after straight drop back after straight drop back. You know, it wasn't nothing. I want to say it was, let me find the number, about 20% play action. He had 8 out of 38 dropbacks. There was an element of play action to it, and that included, big touchdown at the end. But still, like, would have liked to see a little bit more of that along the way, right? Because when it's a straight drop back, like defensive ends, pass rushers, and blitzers know go straight for the quarterback, right? They don't even have to look for the running back per se to see, does he or does he not have the ball? You don't have to think twice about, okay, is this offensive lineman trying to run block me or is he going straight back in pass protection, right? Is there any kind of sail that they're trying to, or disguise of whether this play is a run or a pass? And there just wasn't enough of that. And that's not to say that, if the Bears run, twice as much play action, does that mean they're scoring a bunch of touchdowns early in the game? Like, individually, any of these things might not make or break a huge difference here. But like, I think you saw it become a bigger and bigger factor as the game went on, and it would have been nice to see that a little bit more early on. Same thing in terms of like trying to neutralize the blitz a little bit more. Like, they're sending a bunch of extra pass rushers at you, maybe a screen pass behind it. And I realized, like, they tried to throw a screen pass against the blitz against the Eagles, and it gets picked off by Jalix Hunt. And they've had screen passes at times that sometimes there's a risk involved of a pass rusher stepping into it. But like, first of all, don't play scared offense. Second of all, like, coach them better to not let pass rushers sniff out your screen passes. And also, like, you can run different types of screen passes where, like, maybe your guards and center go up, but your tackles stay in, so the edge rusher has fewer clues to identify that it's a screen pass. Whereas, like, if your tackle lets the edge rusher go, that's a quicker sign for the edge rusher, who's in the best position to disrupt the screen, to go out there and do the screen. And I'm thinking more like running back screens. We've seen the wide receiver screens not be as successful, and especially when Luther Burden and Rome Odunze are out, you don't have as many playmakers you want to get the ball in the hands of at wide receiver, and also like the starters in terms of blockers at wide receiver to block on screens. Like, I understand not wanting Duvernay and Zacchaeus to be screen blocking for DJ Moore a ton, but just like Monangai and Swift, getting them more involved in the passing game. And if, like, they're sending the house and they all run past the blitz and you flip it over top to the running back and he can take off. Like, we saw Kyle Monangai, it was not a screen pass, but there was a blitz where Caleb Williams flipped it to Monangai and he caught it in the backfield and ran for like 25 yards up the right sideline. Like, it was one of those plays that Caleb was able to kind of create something out of nothing instead of having to just throw it away the way we've seen him throw away a bunch. And it's great that Caleb Williams is throwing the ball away in lieu of forcing a pass into contested coverage or taking a sack. But it feels like the next step in the evolution of the Bears offense is to say, okay, you're flushed out of the pocket, or there's blitzes are coming, you're under pressure, and have an answer right there ready for him. And sometimes that answer might be a screen pass. Sometimes it's a hot route from the running back. Sometimes it's an option route from a receiver to with the receiver sees blitz. Receiver knows I got to change my route, and Caleb and the receivers have to be on the same page. But like it was just surprised me because the Packers weren't doing anything particularly like complex coverage wise. They're generally a fairly conservative team, and they're blitzing more now that Micah Parsons is out. But like they were sitting back in a lot of cover 3, a lot of single deep coverages in this game. And when they blitzed, it was single deep coverage or cover 0. Like they were never like Brian Flores is tricky because he does these 2 deep blitz packages where it'll be cover 2 blitz or cover 4 blitz. And sometimes they can disguise that differently on who's going to be back deep. And you think it's going to be open deep and then someone's there. Like they take away a lot of different things. And that's kind of the new style of blitzing, kind of the cutting edge NFL aggressive defensive coordinator thing to do right now is blitzing out of some of those 2 deep shells. But like the Packers weren't doing that. And when they weren't blitzing, cover 3 zone, a little bit of cover 6 and a little bit of cover 2. Like it wasn't like they were super predictable all the time, but they're not locking you up in man-to-man coverage. They're not doing crazy blitzes out of nowhere. Like you kind of know when and where they're blitzing and kind of know generally the types of coverages they were sticking to in the back end. And so like as a coaching staff, after a few drives, like you can start to pick up on tendency type things and okay, they're mostly sitting back in cover 3. So even if they're blitzing from cover 3, like can I hit a seam ball real quick or can I know which routes are going to get open against these coverages and like have answers for your quarterback there. I also feel like when the Bears were struggling to pick up blitzing, like there's some coaching aspects of like, are they passing off blocks correctly? Are they getting in the right protection schemes up front? Like there was one blitz in particular I want to say it was Benjamin Solak from ESPN pointed out on Twitter where they changed the protection, but DeAndre Swift didn't hear it. And so they slid everybody to the left. And when you slide the protection to the left, the running back or the backfield player is supposed to usually fills in on the opposite side, like and like on the interior of the opposite side. And Swift didn't hear the protection change. So he went left. Everybody went left. Someone came free up the A gap and Caleb Williams had to throw away right away. And it's like, I'm willing to allow for occasional rare communication mistakes or occasional rare moments where you don't pick up a blitz correctly. Like every once in a while, a good blitz is just they have more guys and you have blockers, or, they scheme it up well and they loop somebody inside and it's just too hard to pass off. The good blitz design happens, but it just felt like too often in this game, the Bears were letting rushers free a little bit too easily without it being the Packers sending the house every single time. Sometimes you had enough blockers. They just weren't all able to pass off pass rushers in a way to pick up everyone that's coming after the quarterback. And then I'm also willing to put in some amount of excuse here of like putting it on the defense from a time of possession standpoint, that like when you only have 2 drives before the 2-minute warning in the first half, you have fewer offensive plays, and so then there's less margin for error when it comes to putting points on the board, right? It's different when if you have 6 drives and a few of them are 3 and outs, and it's like, okay, well, you've had a lot of opportunities and nothing's working. Like, yeah, 2 mistakes on 2 drives and you get 0 points. Like that's kind of what it comes down to, as opposed to like if it were 2 mistakes on 6 drives, then maybe you get points on those other 4 drives. You know what I mean? It's just like the mistakes hang higher when your defense is not getting off the field. They're preventing points, which was great, and we talked about that on yesterday's podcast. But like when the Packers are dominating time of possession, it means that every little error you make on offense is magnified that much more because you just don't have as many opportunities to make up for it because you're not possessing the ball and having drives enough with the ball in your hands to have more plays to make up for it. So that's where some of the margin of error stuff comes in. And yet late in the ball game, they have more drives, they make up for those mistakes, they get opportunities and they take advantage of them with clutch quarterback play. I think they picked up blitzes a little bit better as the game went on. They found different ways to get Caleb Williams out of the pocket, and he scrambled a little bit more as the game went on, and boom, you had yourself a second half turnaround and finish that explains some of the issues that also happened in the first half. And I think it was interesting to see how not only the offense adjusted a little bit in that way, but also the defense was very different for Jordan Love and for Malik Willis. And they ended up with similar types of results, but they had some different approaches to get there. So we'll take a look at what the Bears did for each quarterback and where there were similarities and differences next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by CarGurus. Car shopping should feel exciting, not confusing. And with CarGurus, you get the confidence you deserve because they cut through all the noise so you can actually see the best deals on the cars you actually want. Because when it comes to a big purchase like this, you deserve the best deal. And CarGurus makes that whole process simple by giving you real information, real deal ratings, and more listings than anyone else so you can shop the way you want to. You can filter by just about everything: mileage, trim, features, location, so you're only seeing cars that actually fit what you need. And their in-depth vehicle reviews help you understand what ownership actually looks like, not just how the car looks online. And with verified dealerships and upfront pricing, it makes the whole thing feel transparent and stress-free. CarGurus connects you with trusted dealerships for a transparent and hassle-free buying process. With over 4 million listings, the most of any major online automotive marketplace, you'll always find the best deal. Shop the way you want with the tools, data, and unbiased deal ratings that make it easy. Buy or sell your next car today at CarGurus.com. That's CarGurus.com. CarGurus.com. We could tell from watching the game the first time through, it was a conservative game plan against Jordan Love. But when you go back to the All-22, you can really kind of see how they decided to pick their poison differently than when they played Jordan Love the first time. The first Bears-Packers game, Dennis Allen tried to blitz him, tried to be aggressive and say, hey, we're going to throw you off and get to you before you can find open receivers behind our blitz and coverage. And Jordan Love found open receivers behind the blitz and coverage and burned them a couple times for big touchdowns in that first Packers game. So Dennis Allen said, screw that. We're doing the opposite. We are going to sit back, deep zone coverages, nothing deep. You can throw it short, throw the checkdowns, we'll step up and tackle you, and we're going to bet you, Green Bay, that you cannot consistently do 12 and 14 play drives down the field. That if you're running for 4 and then passing for 4 and then running for 3, okay, that's a first down. Okay, and then you're passing for 4 and then you're running for 3 and then you're passing for 5. Okay, that's a first down. But it took you 6 plays to get 22 yards. Or what? I didn't do the math there, but I was just saying numbers. And you got to do that every single time down the field. We bet that somewhere in there you're going to make a mistake. You're going to have a penalty that puts you in 3rd and long, and you can't throw deep because we're taking away the deep stuff, so you have to throw short in long down and distance, or you're going to have a drop pass. Or our pass rush is going to get home. Our 4-man rush is going to get home sometimes, in theory, or it's going to be a bad snap. There's going to be a miscommunication. There's going to be a batted pass at the line of scrimmage. Something is going to go wrong somewhere along that 14-play drive that keeps you from getting points and touchdowns. That you're going to get them sometimes, but you're not going to go all game driving 80 yards with 12 and 14 plays to get down there. That was the Bears' game plan. And so as a result, you saw the Packers' first drive goes from what their own, I guess they had pretty good field position after the penalty on the opening kickoff, right? But it's still a 13-play drive that ends with a turnover on downs on 4th down because somewhere along the way, they're going to make a mistake, right? Jordan Love's going to be inaccurate on a throw to Christian Watson in the end zone, right? Or they're going to have a couple of short runs. They give them 3rd and 7, and then they throw short, so it's 4th and 1 instead of another first down, and then the incompletion, right? They make a mistake somewhere on the drive. Or you go to their second drive that goes, what was it? 14 plays, 70 yards, right? And you dare them to dink and dunk and get these little plays down the field and wait for them to make a mistake. And again, like in the red zone, Jordan Love throws a horizontal pass that goes out of bounds for a loss of 3, right? Technically like a fumble. And then Jordan Love inaccurate in the end zone and they have to take a field goal, right? Somewhere along the way, you're going to miss and make a mistake. And that was the Bears' game plan. And it was tough because you're giving up a lot of time in possession and your offense isn't out there, but you're not giving up big plays and they weren't giving up touchdowns. And you'll take that in exchange for a lot of yards and some heavy time in possession there. Like the Bears were sitting back. It was the most cover 4 Dennis Allen had run all season in terms of like as a percentage of their coverage. Their go-to was quarters, 4 deep. Nothing's going deeper than us. You can throw it short. You're not going deeper than us. But they did not run any man coverage against Jordan Love, at least outside of the red zone. Sometimes those red zone coverages end up looking like man coverage, but like anywhere in the middle of the field, they were in deep zone coverage. And as a result, Jordan Love deep attempts, zero pass attempts over 20 yards in the air for Jordan Love. He had a couple of intermediate throws here and there, but that's still in front of the safeties, right? In front of the deep players. As a result, the Bears blitzed him one time on 15 dropbacks. Otherwise, it was 4-man rush, deep zone coverage. 4-man rush, deep zone coverage. Now, as a result, they also only get him under pressure on 2 total plays. He's got all day to throw. He's sitting in the pocket. He's making throws happen, but it's 4 or 5 yards at a time. It's 13 plays at a time, and he made mistakes that kept the Packers from having points on the board, and that was the game plan. Then you add in the Bears helped him out with penalties, right? Roughing the passer penalties on 2 of the first 3 drives, negate 2 other times. Not only did you get pressure on the quarterback, but you sacked him 2 more times that didn't count, and you gave the quarterback, or you gave the offense 15 free yards, and you gave them automatic first downs. Like, those were the kind of things that were huge difference makers on those drives as well. That if those are just sacks and not penalties, those are stops by your defense. Your 4-man rush got home on those plays. But alas, and actually I think they blitzed on at least one of them, but alas, they don't count. But it was clearly like this was the game plan for Jordan Love, and it held them to 2 field goals. All things considered, it worked. It was messy, but it worked. But then Malik Willis comes in the game, and you're like, okay, this is the backup quarterback, and he's a lot more mobile. So halftime, we got to change some things up. And I'm not sure that they needed to change some things up in hindsight, but they did. And they come out in the second half against Malik Willis, and instead of all those like 2 deep safety, total deep shells taking away the deep balls, they say, you know what? We're going to bring that safety up in the box. Maybe in part so they can be closer to Malik Willis in case he scrambles, but it was a lot of single deep coverages, cover 3, a little bit more man coverage, some cover 1s in there, but mostly still a lot of zone coverage. I think the zone man thing was more about not being able to match up with the Packers' speed at receiver than it was the quarterbacks per se, but like more closer to line of scrimmage zone coverages that then left more vulnerability downfield. So Malik Willis throws the ball downfield a little bit more. And, they were bailed out by a Nahshon Wright forced fumble on one of those drives at the end there, but like Malik Willis burned you on a deep pass to, was it Dobbs or it was Jaden Reed, I believe. One of them caught the touchdown. The other one got penalized for the flag on the play, and I can't remember which one. It wasn't Christian Watson, but there was a deep touchdown up the left sideline there to Romeo Dobbs, and then Reed was the one who was penalized for taunting on that play. 33 yards. All right, that was the trade-off of like, all right, we're not playing as much deep coverage. You opened up the possibility for more downfield passing, but I think the bet was Willis isn't as consistently accurate as Jordan Love has been, so you'll take your chances maybe trying to be a little bit more physical up front and keeping guys closer to him to maybe try and neutralize some of the rushing. But like even when they got him under pressure, he was 4 for 4 under pressure in this game. He had 3 big scrambles on plays where he was under pressure. They did sack him twice, so they did get home with some of that pressure. They didn't blitz him much more than Jordan Love either. And then you have little stuff like, Jaquan Brisker gets a 15-yard penalty when Willis slides and Brisker goes a little high and doesn't come off of him enough. And again, like little things kind of hurt the defense along the way there. But I can't help but wonder if, I get the trade-off of single deep safety so you can have more guys closer to try and negate the scrambling, but he still had some really big scrambles in there despite that. And so if you had played more deep coverages and forced him to dink and dunk more the same way Jordan Love did and 4-man rush him, let him stay in the pocket, right? His legs were what was killing you. So let him stay in the pocket. You don't got to blitz him. You don't got to, try and go way after him. Just let him throw 14 times because he's going to make more mistakes than Jordan Love in theory. So I just wonder if maybe they overthought it a little bit or got a little too ahead of themselves and said, oh, we got to change things a bunch for Jordan or for Malik Willis, and maybe the same approach would have kept working. I mean, again, we don't know. And don't get me wrong, like we talked about yesterday, you gave up 16 points to the Packers. It did work, all things considered. The whole defensive approach got the job done. It wasn't perfect. It was messy, but absolutely got the job done. But Malik Willis scored more points than Jordan Love did in this game somehow, some way. And so, that's the only reason I wonder if maybe changing things was almost like trying too hard when it was still working against Jordan Love. And I think it could have potentially worked similarly against Malik Willis. So you could have tried it and then changed it if it wasn't working, but we never really saw it not work against Willis. We said, all right, new plan for new quarterback, when maybe same plan could have been effective in its own ways. We'll never know, and I guess it's not that important to get caught up on, because not only did they win the game, right, but the defense did its job. Like, at least with the offense, we can look back and say, hey, offense needed to be better for a lot of this game. Defense didn't really need to be better. Sure, you could always want it to be better, but didn't need to be better. Offense needed to be better, so that like it'd be nice to get to the point where you don't need Caleb Williams to throw a game-tying touchdown to Ja'Day Walker at the very last minute, and you don't need Caleb Williams to throw an absolutely brilliant game-winning overtime touchdown. Like, if you just score more points in the first half, or you win this game in regulation, right? Or if you get the offense going quicker, right? So that's kind of the whole goal and the point of the direction here. Like, important win over the Packers for sure. It gets tough again with the 49ers this week. It's going to be a shootout on Sunday, and you can be sure we'll break down that matchup for you right here on the Locked On Bears podcast. So make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you are one of our everydayers, really appreciate you tuning in 5 days a week. If you want to take that listening to the next level, you can have access to our ad-free audio feed for Locked On Bears, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. It also gets you an invite to a members-only Locked On Everydayers Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of Locked On Bears. It's $5 a month or $50 a year if you want to join and make that next step. You can always keep listening the same way you do now. Podcast is never going to go behind a paywall and not keep being free on all your favorite platforms. It's just next level listening if you want to skip the ads and be a part of the conversation in the group chat. There's a link in the description for this episode, or you can go to the website, lockedonbears.supercast.com, to find out more. Just make sure you're coming back tomorrow for another opportunity to bear down.